Well, it's 20 minutes before it turns noon here when I'm recording this, and this is my first bottle of water of today, and I haven't killed anybody yet. What an accomplishment. But you know, the day's still young. Cheers. Anyways, what is up, Thrashers, and welcome back to Thrash Reviews, where yours truly, Thrash Maniac 99, continues to review upcoming hard rock and heavy metal albums in the calendar year of 2016, and today, I already did the review of the new Despise Icon album. I thought it was an awesome release, but now we get to the second of 5 big-time albums coming out on the day of the 22nd of July. The brand new Witherscape album called The Northern Sanctuary. For those who don't know, Witherscape is a band that formed back in 2013 in Sweden by two talented heavy metal multi-instrumentalists, Ragnar Widerberg, I believe, and one of my all-time favorite metal musicians of all time, Dan Swano. They come together to form a band called Witherscape that's basically, I'd say some people who are familiar with this band would consider this to be like the dueling combo of Nightingale and Edge of Sanity, two of Dan Swano's bands. Nightingale for the more melodic vocals, and Edge of Sanity for the heavier, extreme, brutal vocals. Mix it together into this band, and they've only released 2 albums, counting the second one. So this is their second full-length on Century Media Records. Let's take a look and see what this band had in store this time. The opening track is called Wake of Infinity, and like I said before, this band's basically the dueling combo of Nightingale and Edge of Sanity, and it's well apparent. And it also sounds like this album, starting with this track, could have been a second solo album from Dan Swano after he released Moon Tower in the late 90s. This could have been the next album in that run, because when he made that record, he said it sounded like Rush playing death metal in the 70s, and right off the gate with this song, it certainly does sound that way. A lot of great keyboard playing by Dan Swano. In fact, Dan Swano, because this band is 2 multi-instrumentalists, the Ragnar guy does the guitars and bass, Swano does the vocals, keyboards, and drums. And I tell you, both of these guys are very talented on tracks such as this. It has, though, like I said, those great keyboard parts. It has a really nice melodic feel to it, kind of almost melodeath to some extent. But also just that combination of the melody and the brutality in Dan's vocals. This is why I feel he's probably one of the most underrated heavy metal vocalists of all time, because he has an incredible range of vocals. He can do the low growls, but he can sing normal, but at times he can do the falsettos. So Dan Swano's not to be messed with when it comes to overlooking him. But with this track, it certainly kicked things off in a big way. But let's move on to the next track, called The Examiner. This was mostly a clean vocal track, but it was phenomenal. Like, I loved the beauty behind it. And then eventually the growls come in a little bit later in the second half of the track. But for the majority of the first half, it was beautiful, clean singing from Swano. The guitar playing was on point. Swano's drumming, like, when it comes to Dan Swano, he's mostly known for his vocals and guitar work, but he is a phenomenal drummer. I mean, listen to some stuff he did for Bloodbath back in the early days, and also what he did on the Moon Tower album, and even Crimson 2 by Edge of Sanity. He was the drummer on those albums, and he's very talented. And again, with this song, kind of exploring, like, the whole theme of the album, I can tell, is all about it's all about, like, the ideas of of death, destruction, and rebirth. Kind of like, say, like, this album could be fitting for, like, some of the upcoming Marvel films, like Thor Ragnarok, or and the opening track, Wake of Infinity, would be perfect for an Avengers Infinity War film. So, that's kind of what I got from this album lyrically. But musically, this track, The Examiner, just takes a lot of different elements, and they kind of changed the pace up a little bit, and they slowed things down, which was interesting, because the rest of the album's mainly mid-tempo to even sometimes very fast at certain points and times of the album. But now we move on to my favorite track of the album, and the longest of the album at 13.5 minutes. Close to 14 minutes, The Northern Sanctuary, the title track. Basically takes everything they've done on the previous 7 tracks and just extended to a long period of time. You get those very dark, atmospheric, brooding, moody parts in the middle with the keyboards and the acoustics and Dan's clean vocals, but then you get those moments of the brutality with his death vocals. And it just made for probably in my opinion, so far this year, this would be top 5 song of the year if I were to do that video. But overall with this album, it's great to see Dan Swano back in action doing prog death metal, prog metal again. While he still kind of does prog metal stuff with Nightingale, but it's more on the more melodic side of prog metal as opposed to the aggressive side of prog metal. But this album certainly combines what he's been able to do with Nightingale, but combined with the old school Edge of Sanity stuff from albums like Purgatory, Afterglow, the 2 Crimson albums, and even his solo album Moon Tower. Mix it all into a blender, and I gotta say, this album from top to bottom is a masterpiece. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this is definitely Album of the Year contender. 98 out of 100. Do not sleep on this album, people. If you're a fan of prog metal, or in this case prog death metal, this album is definitely for you. This is a phenomenal album. It's a masterpiece. The musicianship was on point. The songwriting was fantastic. The vocal performance by Dan Swano, his death growl still got a lot of oomph to it. And his clean voice definitely shines through in a big way. Oh my god. No words for me can describe how beautiful and how masterful this album was. Right now, this would be top 2 album of the year right now. This is just a masterwork. But for those who are watching this that have listened to the album, what did you guys think? But until next video, peace.